Senator Fulcher, this week a federal judge overturned Idaho's constitutional ban on same-sex marriage. When this ban was first passed in the legislature and sent to the voters, you called it a culture war. Will there ever be a point at which you lay down your arms in this culture war and move on to other issues? And how much should we spend before we make that call?
Well, I think it's important to point out that Idahoans don't tolerate discrimination, nor should they. And I think our current laws do a pretty good job in that arena. Frankly, I was surprised to see that that judge ruled the way that they did, especially in light of a U.S. Supreme Court ruling that was a U.S. versus Windsor that clearly gave the states the right to define marriage within that state. I believe that I took the right position in 2006 in standing for the marriage amendment, and I stand with the people of Idaho to this day on that issue.
And so how far should we go to try to uphold this in the face of adverse court decisions?
I think we challenge that because the Supreme Court has already ruled that the states have the ability to define what marriage is, and that's what Idaho did in 2006. I stand with the Idahoans.
Yes, well, first off, Melissa, I believe, as Russ has already said, I believe that there isn't any Idahoan that really wants discrimination. But in this case, anything that approaches our values on marriage is going to be looked at very, very closely. I intend to pursue this all the way to the Supreme Court, and I suspect that that's where we're going to end up. In 2006, the people overwhelmingly identified marriage in Idaho in Article 3, Section 28 of the Constitution, and said that marriage is between one man and one woman. And so I raised my hand and pledged to defend the Constitution of the state of Idaho, and that's fully what I intend to do.
Governor Otter, a follow-up. You have vigorously fought this case. Can you please discuss how gay and lesbian couples threaten traditional marriage, in your view?
Well, I think when you redefine marriage, you redefine the whole idea of family. And I say again, we're not anti-gay in Idaho. We're not anti-gay lesbian. We are pro-marriage, and we're pro-traditional marriage. And once again, Betsy, anything that approaches to change that definition or that culture or that value is going to be looked upon a little tough in Idaho.
I'm curious, that same question for Senator Fulcher. How does a gay marriage affect a marriage between a man and a woman?
Well, what happens when you start redefining marriage is you start impacting other laws throughout the state. For example, when that gets redefined, the religious freedom issue comes to play. And so there's a direct conflict there. And so the religious freedom issue is foundational in the United States of America. And as soon as that redefinition of marriage starts coming into play, then there's an automatic conflict with freedom of religion.
Okay. The next question is for Governor Otter from Dan Popke.
Evening, Governor.
Evening, Dan.
Two of your principal initiatives, the Students Come First laws and your effort on transportation infrastructure, were very significant failures. Approaching a third term, how can you assure voters that you'll be able to succeed with your agenda in another 4 years?
Well, I think we began that last year when we established a task force instead of just presenting a program on furthering education, on reforming education in Idaho. We put together a task force of all the stakeholders, and those stakeholders sat down, and I believe they came forth with 20 great recommendations on how we can reform and improve Idaho so that we have the workforce ready for companies when they want to expand in Idaho or companies that want to move into Idaho. And I think you've heard me say before, I'm the first to admit that I believe we had a good product but a bad process with Props 1, 2, and 3. Perhaps it was the same way with transportation. And so I'm going to pay a lot more attention, even though we've got a good product with the 20 recommendations, I'm going to pay a lot more attention to process.
A follow-up for the incumbent, of course. When you took office, you promised accountability at the department level, and accountability, the buck stopped at your desk after that. Yet you've had to deal with the scandals involving the Corrections Corporation of America and the operation of the private prison. and with this ongoing problem with the contract for the high school broadband. Where does the buck stop, and who has been held responsible for those scandals?
Well, the buck did stop with my office, and that's why we've got an investigation and an FBI investigation into the whole CCA into the CCA prison problem. We expect to be able to take action once we've proven the facts. There's still a question about how much bookkeeping was and wasn't done proper. And so that's part of the investigation as well, Dan. So I'll take that action when I have all the facts.
All right, the next question is for Senator Fulcher.
And that comes from me as well. Senator, you tried mightily to stop the health exchange, and then you supported overturning it, repealing it. You first supported Common Core and then tried to overturn it. You didn't get anywhere as a member of leadership this year on those matters. If you can't succeed as a member of leadership in the Senate, what confidence should voters have that you're going to succeed as governor?
I think we can. And I think that the people of Idaho are realizing some of the realities of what comes with the Affordable Care Act. And I think the people of Idaho are realizing what comes with the realities of Common Core. We have we have our back against the wall at this point, and we have an opportunity, I believe, to create a parallel path, a free market component to the Obamacare exchange, an alternative to that truly puts the money in the hands of the people. And I also believe we have an opportunity with Common Core to put in place a best-in-class type of system that truly empowers our teachers and our parents. Those things make sense. And so now that everyone realizes exactly what we were sold, it's time to take them back.
Well, I guess I'm interested in how you're going to convince the other people you have to convince as a member of a government with 3 branches. You're part of a slate. You lead this slate of anti-establishment candidates up and down the ticket, and you're attempting to overturn the power structure in the Idaho Republican Party, and that's run this government for most of the last 60 years. How can you work with people with whom you differ on these fundamental issues if you are elected governor? I
don't think we differ. I think what has happened is we've come up with some better ideas, and I'll give you an example. On the Affordable Care Act, there is a superior solution to that, and it includes several components: healthcare savings accounts, healthcare membership components, a direct pay component. These are things that are a superior solution, opening up competition. Those are better ideas. And the very people who passed this now see that there is a better solution. We can drive that.
I guess you count votes differently than I do. I mean, there was a long debate about these issues. You lost. I'm asking, how are you going to change people's minds?
Dan, again, those things weren't on the table at that point. We were trying to stop the Affordable Care Act because it's the most massive expansion of government in our lifetimes. And now that we have the realities of dealing with it, there are better solutions that have come forth. We can make this happen. We can do it.
Mr. I'd like to respond to that, if I might. Is
sure.
that going to
Governor
be allowed?
Otter, go ahead.
I'd like to respond to that. First off, I'm very proud of the fact that 88% of the Senate leadership has endorsed my candidacy. I'm proud of the fact that those same people were the ones that saw the wisdom in keeping Obamacare out of Idaho by voting to have our own insurance exchange in Idaho. Those other states, Russ is dealing with fantasy here, because those other states that didn't establish their own exchange have Obamacare on steroids in their state, and they're having big problems with it. We have the chance with our own insurance exchange, and I predict in 4 to 5 years there will be a private sector insurance exchange that will compete and take over from our state exchange, because our folks have been able to work on it themselves. These other folks that didn't get the advice that I think that they should have to establish their own exchange, they now have ACORN and Planned Parenthood and other subsets of ACORN actually doing the navigating. We have your local insurance agent. We have the guy that's been selling you insurance actually doing that navigating.
Melissa, there's an opportunity to respond back here, though.
Senator Fulcher.
Understand, Idaho was the only Republican-led state in the nation who chose to partner with President Obama. There is a reason for that. And the reason for that is because it is a massive expansion of government, and it takes away the control of the people and puts it in the hands of the government, and that's wrong.
Governor, earlier this month you said you were thrilled that you had reached your Project 60 goal, but at the same time, according to the Department of Labor, Idaho ranks in the bottom third nationally for average wage and per capita income. Can you explain why the ranking at the bottom third meets your expectations and what people should do as they start making their careers, planning for their careers, and be here in Idaho?
Well, Aaron, that doesn't meet my expectations. The ranking in the bottom third would never meet my expectations. What I was celebrating was the fact that we had reached Project 60 goal. And the Project 60 goal was to grow our economy from where it was when I became governor to $60 billion of total economic activity. I reasoned that if we could raise $3.2 billion on our economy as it was with the same tax structure, then we would have $650 to $700 million to properly fund all the roles of government, including being able to cut taxes. We have now cut taxes, $150 million, and we are refunding government at a pretty good level. We've got a lot of efficiencies in government, and through the recession, through those tough times, we made some tough decisions. I'm not going to go back to some of the wasteful things that we did in government that we learned we didn't have to do while we were going through the recession. And so as we lowered taxes, we still have the necessary income. This year was $2.85 billion to fund the proper roles of government, and we are doing that.
So what would you do differently to stimulate the economy if the voters decide to send you into another term?
Well, I think we've already announced Accelerate Idaho. And Accelerate Idaho is the idea that, number one, we're going to take care of the people that already brought us to the dance. Those citizens, those companies that are here, we're going to try to get them to grow here. And one of the ways we get them to grow here is a workforce that can do the jobs that they want done. I believe our 20 recommendations and our goal of reaching 60% of the people in Idaho between the ages of 25 and 34 having a secondary degree or a skill level license, I believe both of those will present that workforce for the state of Idaho. And as those folks see that, they will come forward. Remember, we were at 8.8% unemployment during the depth of the recession. Today we're at 5.2%.
All right, the next question is
Melissa, I'd like to comment on that.
Please
because here's the situation with Project 60. It really didn't come to bear. The reason that those numbers were reached were only because of inflation and the value of the dollar. In the last 8 years, for the most part, we have been stagnant. And so that goal is just largely misinterpreted.
Can I respond to that?
Briefly, and then it's time to move on.
I didn't use inflation when I decided where I was starting. I said what I want to do is grow the total economic activity. And we grew that total economic activity to $60 billion, Russ.
The numbers just don't bear that out, is my point.
Senator, a question for you. You voted against the Idaho Reimbursement Incentive Act. It was touted as a way to create new, higher-paying jobs here in the state of Idaho. Presumably that's because you don't want the state picking winners and losers. But how do you create higher-paying jobs without favoring the businesses that actually create those jobs?
Three things. First thing you do is you put that alternative in place to the Affordable Care Act because it's a job killer. And if you don't believe that, talk to the small business people out there because they're seeing the negative impact of that now. The second thing that we do is we focus on STEM education, and there's ways to do that without raising taxes. Science, technology, engineering, and math. There's an undeniable link between STEM and prosperity in economic growth. The third thing you do is you go drive access. Wise, balanced access to the natural resources in our state, our timber, our mining, our energy. That is our real wealth. And therein lies true economic growth potential.
If I could ask a real quick follow-up, and that is, what role should the government have in helping the economy?
Well, I think our biggest obligation is to try to reduce the tax burden and the regulatory burden. That's the most fair way to open up competition, is to make it easy for everyone. The reason I voted against that Reimbursement Act was exactly right. It was the government picking winners and losers. We need to level the playing field and lower the tax burden, lower the regulatory structure for everyone.
So I have a question along those lines. If Idaho's economy is recovering, why are our wages still 49th in the nation, ahead of only Mississippi? And what, if anything, should the government do to address this? And I'll throw it to Senator Fulcher first.
The reason that we are the second highest in the nation for minimum wage jobs is because we've been relegated to a service-based economy. And the reason we've been relegated to a service-based economy is because we have been squeezed out from what God gave us, which is our resources. Folks, the true manufacturing base is our timber, it's our mining, it's our lands, it's the energy sources there. We have been relegated away from those things, and it gets worse because we've allowed the federal government to come in with encroachments like endangered species, the EPA, and when you take away a people's wealth, when you take away the access to their resources, you relegate them to a service-based economy, you get minimum wage jobs, and that's where Idaho is.
Governor Otter?
Well, first off, we never invite the federal government into the state of Idaho. We try to do those things ourselves. In fact, I mentioned in my opening speech about how we've been fighting against the wolves because we decided to do nothing in 1995. We said, no, it's yours. You go ahead and run it. That's the exact same thing that those who voted against the establishment of the insurance exchange were saying all over again. They hadn't learned from the wolf episode because it took us so long to finally get management. Now we do have management. We are responsibly controlling the wolves in Idaho. I'd like to respond to that. And it's a great idea to get back all our land. And I wish them well, only I just don't think it's going to happen. But I would ask them this question, and everybody that pursues the idea of us automatically getting back all our land in Idaho. I say again, I wish them well. I'd love to have the fact that we have all that land here. But 2 years ago, my fire bill was $220 million. And that wasn't an exceptional year. But 2 years ago, $220 million, I actually paid $14 million of it, Walt. And the federal government paid the other 206. Now let's say we have all that land here. Now I've got a $220 million bill. Where are you going to get the 206? You've got 3 areas you can get the $206 million. Education, corrections, or health and welfare. Where are you going to take it from?
Let's go out there and do our logging, do our mining, and you'll have the money to pay it.
Well, Senator Fulcher, would you like to respond on this issue?
To respond to that. We will never achieve a goal if we don't set it and put a plan forth to go get it. There is a unique opportunity to do this now, and the reason is because it makes sense for everyone. Our current path is not sustainable. 36% of our state budget comes from the feds. They're broke. It makes sense at this point for them to be able to turn over some of that land, for Idaho to manage it, and for them to get federal tax money from Idaho's growth. We can do this.
Senator, can you cite a member of Congress with any kind of clout that supports this idea? The governor has talked about this. He served in Congress and on the Republican side, and his colleagues didn't want to give up land that they believed belongs to all the people of the United States.
Dan, there's two approaches.
It sounds like a pipe dream given the political reality.
It's not. And the state of Hawaii has done this, and so there is a precedent for it. I believe it's the most likely path.
The state of Hawaii has gotten the federal government to return its land.
That's my understanding.
And is Hawaii like Idaho?
That's my understanding. Let me finish the thought.
Well,
there's two approaches. Okay, the first approach I believe is most likely, and that's through the states. And if you're interested in this topic, take a look at American Lands Council. There is a constitutional legal path to go get this done. To your point, there is also a congressional path. Representative Labrador has put forth, and it's already passed through the House, a transition pilot program where 200,000 acres of land would transition management from the federal government to the state government. But we have to go do this. This is our wealth. This is our prosperity. And without it, we will be a service-based economy with minimum wage jobs. That's where we are now.
Okay, Senator, but we can disagree about whether it's a long shot or not, but let's say it doesn't happen. What's your plan for the economy if this is the silver bullet?
There's actually some low-hanging fruit. We have energy in our lands in Idaho that we have not yet harvested. We have natural gas in Washington and Payette County. A lot of that is on private land. A lot of that is on state land. Every single state with a budget surplus is an energy exporter. 87% of the power powering this room in your home is imported. We have an energy industry in Idaho that is untapped, and we can tap into that. That's like an entire other economic leg under the stool for the state of Idaho.
Governor Otter, briefly, if you want to respond.
Russ, I have been signing lease after lease after lease after lease for oil companies and gas companies that come into Idaho. The 4.2 million cubic foot well that we hit in the Little Canyon, the Little Grove Canyon, was one of the most proved up for us. That was the first time we really knew that we had gas in Idaho. And we fought all of the naysayers that said, no, 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 you can't do that. And let me also go to the public lands, if I might, just for a second. What is not well known is in the agricultural bill that was passed this year, this spring, governors were given 60 days to identify 12 million, or to identify the acreage in their state that was either under threat from bug kill, from insect kill, or from disease, or from overgrowth, and therefore a great fire danger. In Idaho, we turned our report in about 10 days earlier than we had to because we already had the collaborative groups working in each of the national forests in Idaho. We identified 12 million acres that were threatened. We identified 1.8 million acres that we want to be able to go in and clean up, so that we can prevent the fires and that we can stop the spread of disease and insects into our state lands.
Senator Fulcher, you wanted to respond?
Further evidence that we can get this done is it just makes sense. When a federal government is 18 trillion in debt, and there's an opportunity to get some of that debt relieved by transitioning some of that management, it makes sense for the state because there's an economic engine that comes with it. It makes sense for the federal government because with the state's economic engine comes more federal taxes. And it makes sense for the environmental community because it's less likely to have forest fires and all the pollution in the airshed and the watershed. This can be done because it makes sense.
Senator Fulcher, you, like all the candidates here, are running as a Republican. But there is clearly a big rift in the Idaho Republican Party right now. What, in your eyes, does it really mean to be an Idaho Republican?
Well, we're like any organization. There is a platform that comes with being part of that organization. And the Republican Party has a platform, and I stand with that platform. I frequently get amused when people say you're on the fringe somewhere, and my opponent has indicated that I'm on the fringe. What's interesting about all that is I'm the one who sided with the party on Obamacare. I'm the one who sided with the party on Common Core. I'm the one who sided with the party on the closed primary. I'm the one who sided with the party and filled out my survey. So I guess I just have to kind of look at this thing and go, well, all right, then who's really on the fringe? Because my opponent didn't do those things.
Same question, Governor Otter. There is a big rift in the Idaho Republican Party.
Right.
What does it mean to you to be an Idaho Republican?
Well,
and are you looking to heal this rift or to eject those who disagree with you?
I am looking to heal the rift. The rift actually started over the closed primary. If you'll recall, the chairman of the party when I first took office was against the closed primary, as was Ben Usursa, as was a lot of other people. We were against the closed primary, and that's where the first big rift came when they threw out my chairman. I was the only governor in the United States that didn't have my selection of the ruling party or of the governing party and had my own chairman. So now let's fast forward. I think one of the things leadership requires is reality. Why would you mislead people into thinking that you can automatically take away their right to vote on their United States senators? Why would you take people's access to the polls away from them by closing your primary? In fact, it's very convenient from time to time for some of these folks who wanted to close the primary and did close the primary, and then all of a sudden go out and advertise to the Democrats and to the Constitutionalists, to the Independent Party, and to the Libertarian Party, say, oh, cross over. Go ahead and sign this piece of paper and cross over and vote for us. So maybe it wasn't so important that this rift got started in the first place.
Did you want to respond to that, Senator?
I did. You know, this goes a little bit deeper than what any of us have really talked about. If you take a look at the landscape out there, you see a number of groups, and there'll be pachyderms and Reagan Republicans and Rally Right and Constitutionalists and Liberty Caucus. There's this host of people who say, you know what, I used to be a Republican, but the Republican Party left me. The real issue is that many Republicans, and I would say my good friend standing next to me is one of them, have strayed away from that base of what is a true Republican.
Well, I would say Phil Batt and Ronald Reagan were two of the best Republicans that I can ever remember. And both of them said, enlarge the tent. The person that I disagree with 20% of the time and agree with 80% of the time is not my enemy.
So, Governor, if those things that are in the platform that have been talked about that you disagree with are not what it means to be an Idaho Republican, what does it mean?
Well, once again, I think leadership requires you to lead, and you need to lead with reality. And to be able to do some of those things, you saw my response to the Republican Party when they asked me which of these platforms, which of these planks did I agree with and which didn't I agree with. I want to tell you, we received from the Republican headquarters when the legislature was going on and we were trying to establish the state health insurance exchange and keep Obamacare on steroids out of the state. Every Republican received a letter from it that said, remember the Republican plank, remember the Republican plank. But when they started crossing over in the primary, the very essence of the reason the party got split apart in the first place, then not one word was said. So I think being a leader in the Republican Party requires reality, and it also requires leadership.
If I may,
Please.
Melissa, please. In order to unite, and I do believe we need to unite, and frankly, I need to be able to unite some of those groups if I am going to win, and I believe we are next week. But the reality is this, you unite by rallying around the major issues most important to conservatives within our state, and that's the control of our health care and our education by the people, not by the government.
Senator Fulcher, just a quick follow-up. You were an advocate of the closed primary, but you did, as the governor suggested, appeal to recruit Democrats and members of the other two minor
Dan, you're the one who
parties.
said I was appealing to the Democrats.
I read your
You're the
appeal.
one who wrote about it.
Yes.
Who I was appealing to was the people who used to be Republicans, and those are mostly Liberty Caucus members, Constitutionalists, Ron Paul, Reagan Republican Rally, right? Those groups. I have to pull them in
Your
in order to
material
win.
said Democrats can register, re-register
There
by
might
March
be a few
14th.
Republicans that transitioned over as Democrats, and if that's so, I welcome you back because I am not going to stray away from our party.
Well, isn't that opportunistic to say I'm for Republicans picking our nominee,
No,
except when I'm running
it's
and
about,
the Democrats
No,
can
it's
help.
not. It's about uniting around a platform. I believe in the Republican Party platform, and I am asking people who think likewise to unite with me.
Governor Otter, did you want to respond briefly to that?
Well, I guess we can say it over and over and over again, but leadership requires a heavy dose of reality and not to mislead people into thinking that they can achieve something they can't. I say again, I wish them well on the public lands. I say again, I think in 3 or 4, 5 years, we're going to have a private sector answer to our healthcare exchange because our people are so innovative and unique in coming up with new products right here in the state of Idaho.
All right, Governor, I'm going to have to cut you off. It's time to go to closing remarks, and you're up first for close.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you for providing this opportunity to discuss the issues that are most important to the people of Idaho, because that's what this election is all about. This election is about you, your future, your hopes, your dreams, and ensuring that we have the freedom and the means to achieve them. I've experienced a lot as your governor, and I'm putting all that I've experienced to work every day to improve on how I do my job in serving you. Our state is filled with good people who want to do the right thing, and they ask little more of their government than to join them in that effort. We all want and deserve government that is open and transparent. We all want and deserve government that enables us to participate fully in crafting Idaho solutions to the challenges that we face. We all want and deserve people in our government who are positive and encouraging and who share the responsible conservative values that we all have. I'm honored to have been through the refining fire with you, and I'm excited about continuing to face the challenges of today and tomorrow. Together we can achieve our vision of Idaho that is safer, more prosperous, and more united than ever before. I'm Butch Otter, and I'm humbly asking for your vote on May 20th. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Governor. Senator Fulcher.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, under Governor Otter, Idaho voluntarily embraced Obamacare and yet another federal education program. We have increased our dependency on a bankrupt federal government. And the governor says that he was able to balance the budget without raising taxes. And Governor, I would say you're welcome, because you tried. And if it weren't for myself and then Representative Labrador, you would have raised taxes on gas and on registration fees. So now, Idaho is the second highest in the nation for having the highest percentage of minimum wage jobs, and one of the states least friendly to do business. Our economy is stagnant. The policies are bad, and they're not sustainable. We must take control of our health care and not let the government do it. We must drive access to our natural resource base. We must put education under the control of our parents and our teachers. My fellow Idahoans, I ask you to ask yourself, are you better off today than you were 8 years ago? If you're like most of us, the answer is no. It is time to shake up the establishment. My name is Russ Fulcher. I'm running for governor, and I ask your vote on May 20th.